Chapter 17:13. The four men were the most at ease in the forest. In just 2 breaths' time, the 4 of them disappeared into thin air. Gu Mingming then turned around and looked at the man, asking, "If you knew this day would come, would you still choose to abandon mother and me for Wang Xuyun?" The man shook his head decisively. "No, my precious daughter, you are daddy's most beloved child. If not for Wang Xuyun, that slut, forcing me with her pregnancy, why would I abandon you guys? Actually, I have long regretted it all these years, but your mother has her own family now. I have already hurt her once, how could I bear to disturb her again? As for you, Sai, daddy is too ashamed to see you, that's why I don't dare to visit you. You don't even know, every year on your birthday, daddy will buy your favorite strawberry-flavored birthday cake, insert the numbered candles that represent your age and then sing a birthday song to the cake alone. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Mingming, happy birthday to you. When is my birthday?" Gu Mingming did not wait for the man to finish singing, directly interrupting him. The man was suddenly stunned, as if he did not expect Gu Mingming to suddenly ask such a question. His brain twitched, he really wanted to give himself a tight slap. He could have used any method to clear his name? Why did he have to mention birthday? There were 365 days in a year, that was a 1 in 365 chance, how could he guess? If he guessed wrongly, mistake. Gu Mingming smiled coldly, then shook her head slowly, saying, "You don't even remember my birthday and you don't care about me at all, right? How could that be?" The man looked a little awkward, but he quickly covered it up with his fatherly facade, swearing solemnly, "Even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs, no matter how heartless I am, you are still my daughter. How could I not feel heartache for you, not miss you? But daughter, you must understand that a father's love is like a mountain. The love that daddy gives you is grand and deep, naturally not as gentle and delicate as your mother, who will always remember different days. Daddy's love is to stand in front of you and protect you at all times, understand?" Gu Mingming nodded as if she deeply agreed. The man then heaved a sigh of relief, feeling that his words of a loving father teaching his daughter were too well said. A textbook example of a loving father. Gu Mingming looked up and smiled at the man, calling out, "Daddy?" The man was so excited that he almost cried on the spot. Gu Mingming had acknowledged him. What did this mean? This meant that the Prince of F Country and the boss of Fiery Flame would have to call him father-in-law from now on. It meant that he would become the most honorable person in the world. From now on, he could do whatever he wanted and squander money however he wanted. If anyone made him unhappy, he would have his sons-in-law kill them. However, before he could complete half of his dream, Gu Mingming continued, "It's time for you to display your fatherly love." What? The man was still in a daze until Gu Mingming pointed to the side with her chin. Only then did the man realize that they had been surrounded by a pack of wolves. Many wolves lowered their bodies and bared their teeth as they stared at Feng and the others, as if they were ready to attack at any time. Chapter 17:14. Gu Mingming sat in the middle of the wolf pack, cross-legged as she watched the man running away in panic. She smiled and her gaze was calm. She did not feel disappointed at all. It was as if the test she gave him was unnecessary. He had never let her down when it came to abandoning her. She had given him a chance. Even if he felt a little guilty towards her, even if she did not expect him to sacrifice himself to buy time for Gu Mingming to escape, as long as he could pull her along when he ran, or even shout at her, "Gu Mingming, run," she would have a reason to let him off. However, he did not pull her along, nor did he shout at her to run together. He did not even turn back to look at her. Moreover, he even pushed her directly into the pack of wolves. His fatherly love was like a mountain. Was it like the Golden Chicken Mountain? Gu Mingming just sat on the ground with the wolf pack surrounding her. There was not a single trace of the fierceness in her eyes. She was as obedient as a dog. Elvis walked out from behind the tree and carried Gu Mingming into his arms. He whispered into her ear, "The ground is cold, let me carry you." Gu Mingming did not object and just let Elvis carry her obediently. Then Snake leaned half his body down from a tree in his half-beast state. His snake tail wrapped around his arm and his body hung in midair. He said, "Taming, are you sure you want to see it with your own eyes?" Gu Mingming did not look up at Snake. She just stared at the man who was being dragged back like a corpse by the snake not far away. A snake as thick as a thigh used its tail to wrap around the man's arm and dragged him towards Gu Mingming. It only stopped when it was a step away from Gu Mingming. It spat blood at Snake as if it was reporting its mission. Snake nodded. That snake then released its tail and slithered towards a tree at the side. It hid in the treetops to spy on the man just now. The arm that was wrapped around by the snake had already turned into mud. Bits and pieces of broken bones poked out from the flesh. That arm was the one he used to push Gu Mingming. I used just the right amount of poison so that he could clearly see how he died, but he could not even struggle. Snake's smile was so cold that it made one's blood run cold. Gu Jigang's eyes widened. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Everything in front of her was too strange. A pack of wild wolves surrounded Gu Mingming like domesticated dogs, and a half-human, half-snake monster was hanging from a tree. He tried to open his mouth but no sound came out. His entire body was numb, and just like what Snake said, his mind was clear, but he had no control over his own body. Unbeknownst to him, many small snakes as thick as a thumb had surrounded him. His open mouth had become a playground for the small snakes to explore. One by one the snakes drilled into his body through his mouth. It was too late for him to shut his mouth. With his own eyes, he saw the colorful little snakes burrow into his mouth. He could clearly feel them moving along his esophagus. He even saw his stomach rise and fall like a wave. Then, a small red head burrowed out of his belly button. The smell of blood stimulated the pack of wolves, and they let out low growls as if they were enduring the desire for blood in their bodies. After all, with the Wolf King around, how would they dare to be impudent? Go. Digression, Golden Chicken Mountain. It was said that after a person dies they have to walk the road to hell. The fifth stop on the road is the Golden Chicken Mountain. Chapter 17:15. The one who gave the order was not Elvis but Gu Mingming. She patted the head of one of the wolves lightly before leaning into Elvis's arms. Expressionlessly, she watched as the pack of wolves pounced towards her biological father. She knew that he could still hear her words, so she slowly opened her mouth and said without any emotions, "You gave me a sperm and gave me a life. Because of you, I had the chance to meet them, so I should be grateful to you. But you ruthlessly and heartlessly trampled on this gratitude. You abandoned your daughter in the name of true love, and did not bear any responsibility as a father. Now you personally overthrew your so-called true love, just because I, the daughter you abandoned, suddenly have the power to decide your life and death. You don't love my mom, you don't love me, and you don't love Wang Suyun. You only love yourself. It is not a sin if you don't look out for yourself and the heavens destroy you. But, the way you love yourself, you hurt others without the slightest bit of remorse. Until just now, I was still giving you a chance. Even if you still have a shred of conscience, even if you still have some blood ties, even if you don't call for me when you escape, at least don't push me, or, if you plead for Wang Suyun along the way and not push all the blame to her, let me see a little bit of the relationship between husband and wife, then I can believe the two words true love I said that year and spare your lives. Unfortunately, in the end you only love yourself. In front of yourself, everything else can be sacrificed. My mother is like that, I am like that, Wang Suyun and your daughter are also like that." As Gu Mingming said, she suddenly laughed. Looking at Gu Jigang, whose intestines had been pierced, she hid half of her face in the shadows like a ghost in the dark night. Her voice was cold, and coupled with the rustling of the leaves in the wind, it sounded like the singing of a wandering soul from hell. Bloodline is a magical thing. That sperm of yours has established a part of my personality that's really like you. Such as selfishness, such as heartless. You could turn a blind eye to the torture I endured when I was young, so I could watch you being eaten by wild beasts with my own eyes and not do anything. If you can push me to the wolves to escape, then I can personally order the wolves to eat you up. I won't leave a dangerous factor in this world who can attack me from behind at any time. If you hate me, remember to turn into a malicious spirit and come back to take revenge on me. Only then will I have the chance to beat you to the point that your soul will fly away and scatter, never to be reborn again." By the time Gu Mingming finished her last word, Gu Jigang's throat had already been bitten off by the wild wolves. His entire body had already been devoured clean, leaving only a pool of dirty blood stains and a hideous face with eyes wide open. Snake threw a glance over, and the snake that had been coiled up on the tree after capturing Gu Jigang slowly slithered down. After hissing and sticking out its tongue, it swallowed the head in one gulp. At this point, Gu Jigang had been completely devoured by the pack of wolves and snakes. This person no longer existed in this world. Even his corpse could not be put back together. Gu Mingming exhaled heavily through her nose, then lowered her eyes to calm her emotions. Elvis did not say much and just carried Gu Mingming out of the forest. There was no other reason other than that Xiaoming was afraid of seeing blood. Chapter 17:16. Elvis hesitated for a moment before replying, "They went to deal with Wang Suyun." Gu Mingming did not ask further about how they would deal with Wang Suyun. Because to her, Wang Suyun's identity was much purer than Gu Jigang's. They were purely enemies. Gu Mingming would not blame Wang Suyun for Gu Jigang's affair and abandoning his wife and daughter. Because if this man had a sense of responsibility, he would not have given Wang Suyun such a chance. If he had even a little conscience, he would not have been so cruel to her and her mother. Gu Mingming had always felt that the man was the main culprit in this affair. After all, if a cow does not drink water, no one can force it. A fly would not bite an egg without a crack. That was probably the logic. Gu Jigang was a man who would not stay by his wife's side for the rest of his life. So even if there was no Wang Suyun, there would be Li Suyun and Zhang Suyun. But this did not mean that Wang Suyun was not at fault for intervening in someone else's marriage and destroying someone else's family, even if there was no Wang Suyun. Gu Mingming did not want to criticize all the mistresses in the world on behalf of justice. She only represented herself and hated Wang Suyun for intervening in her life and destroying her family. Even with the passage of time, when she saw Wang Suyun's face, she would still remember how Wang Suyun came home with a pregnant belly and forced her mother to divorce under the guise of true love. She also did not forget how she instigated her father and mother to fight for custody of the house her parents bought when they got married. She used the reason that the father's family structure was more complete and more suitable for the child to grow up. Ah, how ironic. His affair became his advantage in front of the law. She snatched her mother's man as she wished, lived in her mother's house and hid her mother's child. Gu Mingming would not forget the days when she was locked in the hammock and not allowed to come down. Even when she went to the toilet, she had to be careful not to be discovered by her. Otherwise, the phrase, "I'll hit you every time I see you," would come true. Gu Mingming would also not forget Wang Suyun's hateful and vicious expression every time Wang Suyun and Gu Jigang argued with each other. She would never forget the slap she had given her on the street, as well as the powerful words she had said, "You're not my child, so why should you spend my man's money? Don't be like your shameless mother, trying to use your child to pester a man after getting divorced. He's not my son." After 1,000 years of training in the beast world, Gu Mingming understood one principle. Sometimes kindness was not a virtue. Repaying evil with good, how to repay good. Now Gu Mingming believed in karma and the cycle of karma. As such, she did not ask Leah and Gregory how they would deal with Wang Suyun. Because no matter how Leah and Grace dealt with it, it was her retribution for being a mistress. Not every mistress who wrecked someone else's family would receive such retribution. Wang Suyun could only blame her bad luck. The person she had offended was Gu Mingming. And by Gu Mingming's side, there were 4 males who could not bear to see her suffer even the slightest grievance and would definitely seek revenge for anything that happened to her. After that day, no one mentioned anything about Gu Jigang and Wang Suyun. Chapter 17:17. The 4 males in the family were worried that Gu Mingming would be depressed because of this matter. Although she said she did not mind, she still gave Gu Jigang a quick death. Yes, being eaten by wild beasts was already a relatively easy way to die. After all, with Li's methods, Gu Jigang would probably live to 100 years old and die without a way out. But after a few days, Gu Mingming ate and drank as she liked without being affected, so the 4 males in the family gradually relaxed. Snake had always been very busy, especially after Elvis took over the fiery flames. He was no longer the family's only source of income, and even his position as the main source of income was in danger. This made him feel a sense of crisis, so he became more concerned about the family's matters, and became busier and busier. And Elvis, as the first partner in the family, wanted to maintain his position in the family, so he definitely could not let Snake keep suppressing him. In addition to the knot in his heart from 1,000 years ago, he desperately wanted to win Snake for once. So, the first partner and the partner with the mark on his heart fell into a strange competitive atmosphere. Neither of them tried to trip each other up and even cooperated with each other. After all, the money they earned would eventually go into Gu Mingming's pocket. Only a fool would sacrifice his own family's benefits to compete. But while they cooperated with each other, they were also secretly competing with each other. The battle between their claws and fangs was also very intense. Gu Mingming did not stop them from fighting. It was normal for males to be competitive. Elvis had his responsibility and dignity as the first partner, while Snake also had his pride and backbone as a king. If Gu Mingming interfered, it would not be a good thing for either of them. Even the one who was favored would not feel happy. Because, did you think I could not win him, so you asked him to give in to me? The brains of the males in their family had always been abnormal. To them, the most effective way for her to love them was to keep making things difficult for them, and to be pretentious. Being sensible, trying to keep the peace and making compromises in their eyes, it meant that she didn't love them anymore. Her heart was tired, but she did not want to say it. Gregory had also been acting mysteriously recently. She did not know what he was busy with, but he would always greet Gu Mingming before disappearing for the entire day. Gu Mingming felt that it was strange, but she did not probe further. After all, although Gregory was her guardian beast, he was not her man in the truest sense, so he had the right to choose again. After all, this was the modern world, and modern women wouldn't reject you just because you liked someone else. Although Gu Mingming felt a little awkward, she did not force him. Gregory was very good, really very good. He was so good that if he wanted to abandon her to find a complete relationship, she had no right to say anything. What happened? Leah swayed his large tail and lifted Gu Mingming's little chin with his slender fingers. He squinted his eyes to look at her lost expression and asked softly, "Are you hinting at something by showing such a lonely look in front of me?" Chapter 17-18. But Leah did not mind. He swayed his large tail and smiled flirtatiously. His long and affectionate eyes stared into Gu Mingming's without any restraint. His love was deep as he opened his red lips and said softly, "I am also your partner. It is my responsibility and obligation to soothe your loneliness. Don't tell me I can't warm you up just because they neglected you?" The words "neglected you" made Gu Mingming's scalp go numb. She dared to guarantee that if Elvis and Snake heard these two words, they could instantly change the battlefield from F country to her bed. Thinking about how they were competing to see who could earn more money, if it was changed to who could make her unable to get out of bed for the longest time, Gu Mingming shuddered in disgust. She immediately smiled at Leah and said, "My good hubby, please don't say that. I have you by my side, how can I be lonely?" Leah raised his brows and looked at Gu Mingming, who was deliberately trying to please him. He pursed his lips and gave a profound smile. He asked with a look as if he had gotten the upper hand, "Really?" Gu Mingming was really helpless. They had been together for 1,000 years. How could she not understand the obvious "come and praise me" look on Lee's face? Holding onto Lee's arm, Gu Mingming hung her whole body in his arms. She looked up and smiled, saying sweetly, "Of course, my hubby is extremely handsome and is the best-looking male in the world. I don't even have time to look at you. How would you have the time to be lonely?" Leah pinched Gu Mingming's chin and kissed her lightly on the lips. "I don't want to compare myself to all the males in the world. Just tell me, am I the most good-looking in our family?" Leah smiled. Gu Mingming felt that there was an infinitely large pit in front of her. If she jumped into it, Elvis and Snake would torture her to death. If she did not jump, haha, Leah could torture her to death without waiting for them to return. Rolling her eyes, Gu Mingming straightened her neck and said, "No, I am the best-looking in our family." She sounded really guilty when she said that. Perhaps when compared to the females in the beast world, Gu Mingming could be considered a heavenly beauty. But in the present world, Gu Mingming was at most above average. This was the temperament and aura that she had accumulated over 1,000 years, as well as the absolute love and nourishment from the 4 men at home. When she first transmigrated, she could only be considered below average in the modern world. As for the males in the beast world, any one of them could kill off a bunch of popular fresh meats in seconds, and the 4 in her family were the cream of the crop. Elvis's fortitude, Lee's seductiveness, Snake's cold arrogance, Gregory's abstinence, they were all at the peak of perfection. Just their faces alone could make people kneel and lick them for a lifetime. If it weren't for the fact that the 4 of them obviously pampered and doted on her, when she stood beside the 4 of them, she would be like a little assistant next to a big star, completely inconspicuous. But now, he had to say that he was the best-looking one in the family. How could he not feel guilty? How unconscionable. Leah, on the other hand, deeply agreed with Gu Mingming's words. He nodded his head and agreed with utmost sincerity. "That's true, my Xiao Mingming is the best-looking person in this world." With Leah praising her with such a serious face, she felt even more guilty. Chapter 17-19. Another honeymoon, Gu Mingming thought about it. During the previous honeymoon, it was Cole who used a medicinal worm to trick Leah and try to replace him. In the end, when Leah counterattacked, Elvis and Leah cooperated and put on a show to kidnap her away. After that, when she was the messenger of the beast deity, the family of 3 never separated. After that, Snake and Gregory came back and they became a family of 5, almost inseparable. But when they first transmigrated to the modern world, Snake played a small trick and made Elvis and Leah throw her over a week earlier. So to Elvis and Leah, she had a week alone with Snake. Although this week did not exist in her timeline, to Elvis and Leah, it was a solid 7 days of separation from her. After that, Snake was busy with tribe matters and Leah was arranged by Gu Mingming to treat Quentin's illness, so she had a few days alone with Elvis. Putting aside Gregory, the guardian beast with an empty name, among the proper partners, Only Leah had not been alone with her since they came to the modern world. Her partner was very open-minded and magnanimous when it came to other things, but when it came to her, he would haggle over every little detail. So when Leah said that, Gu Mingming understood that he was feeling aggrieved. Hugging Lee's neck and rubbing his face intimately, Gu Mingming smiled and replied, "All right, let's go on a honeymoon." Leah was extremely satisfied. He kissed Gu Mingming's little face and asked, "Do you have any special place you want to go? If not, can I arrange it for you?" Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Then she leaned into Lee's arms and said gently, "With you by my side, anywhere is good." Lee's heart melted because of Gu Mingming's words. He hugged her even tighter and breathed lightly into her left ear. Biting her delicate earlobe, he whispered, "Vixen." Gu Mingming laughed and fooled around for a while, but allowed Leah to carry her back to the room for an afternoon nap. When she woke up, the other 3 men in the house were already back. But the atmosphere around them did not seem too harmonious. Leah must have taken the initiative to tell them about the honeymoon, so the other 3 were obviously unhappy. Seeing that Gu Mingming had already woken up, although Elvis's face darkened, he still took the cup from the bedside out of habit and used his chest to support Gu Mingming. Then he brought the cup to her lips and said in a cold voice that could not hide his concern, "The weather has been dry recently, you have to drink more water." Gu Mingming was long used to having a cup of warm honey water delivered to her the moment she opened her eyes, so she naturally did not reject it. She obediently drank the whole cup and smiled sweetly at Elvis, saying, "I want another cup." Elvis smiled sweetly. Yes, this was a form of flattery. As long as she ate and drank more, the males in her house would be as excited as if they had been stepped on. Chapter 17:20. Gu Mingming rested her head on Snake's chest and took the cup of honey water from Elvis. As she drank, she said, "Bailan said she is going to hold her wedding with Zhang Jinqing next month, so we have to make a trip back to S-City. Do you have time?" Snake raised his eyebrows and gave a low laugh. Back to S-City. In front of Bailan and Zhang Jinqing, he was Gu Mingming's legitimate fiancé. Although he was the prince of F country, S-City was his true home ground in Gu Mingming's territory. "I will always be available whenever you need me." He lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's cheek. The person who was so cold that he could freeze the air into ice was now like the spring breeze in March. Although he was a little cold, there was a unique gentleness to him. Second partner settled. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming looked up at Gregory. He had not been seen these few days. Perhaps he had a new life plan? Suppressing the disappointment in her heart, Gu Mingming only smiled at Gregory and did not say anything else. Since she could not give him a complete set, then she would just let the Birdman go. A bird's eyes were the sharpest, and he could clearly see that Gu Mingming was pacifying her first and second partners. Of course Elvis and Snake knew it too. But they were willing to fall for her little tricks and were just willing to be pacified by her. Gregory was still anticipating that Gu Mingming would say something to him, but she only smiled and did not say a single word. By right, after his return, although Gu Mingming was not as close to him as her other partners, she had never been so distant. Could it be, what did he do wrong that he did not know? Furrowing his brows imperceptibly, Gregory began to reflect on himself, but he could not come up with an answer no matter how hard he tried. Gu Mingming did not want herself to pay too much attention to Gregory, so she purposely did not look at him anymore. She just snuggled back into Elvis's arms, still holding a big cup of honey water in her hand and sipping it slowly. When she had drunk about half a cup, she then said, "You guys are all busy recently. Leah and I have nothing to do and plan to go out for a walk." "I'm not busy." Elvis suppressed his voice and said softly. Gu Mingming chuckled and did not reply. She looked at Snake. Snake glanced at Leah coldly and said, "I am busy, but no matter how busy I am, I still have time to accompany you." She knew it would be like this. He looked at Leah helplessly and smiled. "Then let's go together. I am the happiest when all of you are accompanying me." Leah swayed his large tail and said pretentiously, "Xiao Mingming, you're going back on your word again, huh?" Gu Mingming shrugged and chuckled. "Anyway, you guys always call me little liar, don't you? Forget it. As long as you don't lie to me about that, I won't blame you for anything else." Leah smiled magnanimously, then kissed Gu Mingming on the cheek. "I knew we couldn't shake them off, so this honeymoon plan was to travel as a whole family." With that, Leah turned to look at Snake and asked, "Your Highness, how is the relationship between F country and H country? Is your title as a prince useful in H country?" Snake laughed softly. His lips curled into a proud smile. "I don't know if my title as a prince is useful, but US dollars are definitely useful. Isn't that enough?" Chapter 1721. Elvis and Snake did not care much about money. Anyway, it was spent on Meng Meng in the end, so it was good. As for whose hands it was spent on, what did it matter? Anyway, with the two of them, one black and one white, the family would not be short of money. So, Elvis and Snake each gave Leah a black card and said in unison, "The password is birthday." It was obvious whose birthday it was. Leah did not hesitate to accept it. Even though he was rich and had quite a lot of money, who would complain about money biting their hands? Right? Gregory did not say a word from the side. It was just that he did not feel very comfortable and awkward. Although he did not have a strong presence, it was the first time Gu Mengmeng ignored him like this. In the past, although he was the last one and he never objected to any of her decisions, Gu Mengmeng would still ask him even if it was just a symbolic gesture. But this time she did not even look at him with a questioning gaze. So, she did not intend to bring him along on this honeymoon, right? His heart suddenly felt empty. That feeling of not being able to go up and down made him feel helpless and lost. If he was not by her side, then where should he go? Baby Meng? Gregory could not help but call out softly. Gu Mengmeng looked up and smiled brightly at Gregory, saying, "It's all right if you have other matters to attend to and cannot come with us. You can go ahead and busy yourself. I'm fine." Gregory had not thought of what to say, so he subconsciously called out her name. Hearing her say that, he could not form a complete sentence out of his messy words. He could only nod his head with difficulty and force out a word, "All right." A journey that could be set off at will, with the support of a strong foundation of money, proceeded exceptionally smoothly. Snake threw the matters of the family to his so-called father, and Elvis handed the matters of the fiery flames to Barit. After the family of three boarded the private plane, Gu Mengmeng then asked, "Why are we going to H country? You are not familiar with that place." Leah smiled mysteriously, swaying his tail as he leaned against the chair lazily. His long and affectionate eyes scanned across Gu Mengmeng's face with a hint of deep ambiguity. He said, "You will know when you get there." Gu Mengmeng shrugged and did not probe further. Actually, ever since she had a cold war with Elvis and Leah in the stray beast camp, the men in the family no longer dared to hide anything from her. She hadn't experienced this kind of "you'll know when you get there" deliberately mystifying for almost 1,000 years. But Leah would never hurt her. He thought that it was probably some kind of strange surprise. Gu Mengmeng did not probe further. It was a 10-hour flight, and because it was a private plane, it was spacious. Moreover, there were entertainment items prepared for her by her man on the plane. Furthermore, Elvis, Leah and Snake were all by her side, so it was not difficult to kill time. It was just that when they alighted from the plane, the sky was already dark, so Gu Mengmeng leaned on Elvis's shoulder and said, "Yeah, let's go to the accommodation and rest for a while." "Leah, tomorrow?" Gu Mengmeng had wanted to ask Leah what plans he had for tomorrow, but before she could finish her words, she felt a tightness around her waist and was flung out by something. Chapter 1722. After a moment of dizziness, before Gu Mengmeng could see anything clearly, a handkerchief covered her mouth and nose. Gu Mengmeng instinctively wanted to hold her breath, but the action of covering her mouth was so perfunctory that it was released in less than 2 seconds. So, just going through the procedure? Then shouldn't she play along and pretend to faint? Gu Mengmeng was in a daze. A black headgear covered her and her arms were tied behind her back, but it was not a thick hemp rope or leather belt that tied her up. This scarf? And it was made of good quality that would not strangle people. Were kidnappers so humane nowadays and so considerate towards their hostages? Gu Mengmeng was shoved twice symbolically and pushed into a car. Then there was an extremely exaggerated jolt. Feeling sleepy for some unknown reason, Gu Mengmeng slowly fell asleep in the jolt. The second before she fell asleep, she was still thinking that the handkerchief covering her mouth and nose did not have the smell of knockout drugs, and that she had held her breath? But why did she still fall for it? When she woke up in a daze, Gu Mengmeng was even more confused. She was tied to a folding chair, surrounded by dilapidated buildings, and a European stood in front of her. He looked a little familiar, but after thinking for a long time, Gu Mengmeng could not remember who he was. She just instinctively felt that he was not someone from the beast world, but a European from the modern era. Her first reaction was that he was Harold's subordinate? But he did not make a move in F country and only made a move in H country? Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had woken up, the man laughed exaggeratedly. Then he picked up a pistol from the table and used the gun handle to smash Gu Mengmeng's head. However, he did not touch Gu Mengmeng and just brushed past her face. Gu Mengmeng looked at the man in a daze, not understanding why he was bluffing to scare her. The man did not explain. He pinched Gu Mengmeng's chin and turned her face to the side. Then he used the gun handle to mess up Gu Mingming's hair, as if he had just hit her with the gun handle. Gu Mingming turned her head back to look at the man again. She did not say anything, but her face was filled with crazy. Can you speak English? The man spoke in an authentic English accent. Before Gu Mingming could reply, he continued, I hope you don't think that I'm a good person, especially when I'm holding a gun. Gu Mingming was speechless. Why did she feel that this person in front of her was even more abnormal than the males in the beast world? Under Gu Mingming's gaze, the man spoke in English like a drama queen. Gu Mingming had transmigrated when she was in her first year of university. Strictly speaking, her English level was only at high school level, and the last time she used English was about 1,000 years ago. So Gu Mingming did not understand many of the words men said. But she heard him mention words like Leah, smart, mysterious, disappeared, dangerous, and secret intermittently. Then a few foreigners entered the house with computers, speaking fluent English that Gu Mingming could barely understand. The man who held the gun and pretended to shoot Gu Mingming smiled. Then a series of gunshots came from outside the house. The man raised his eyebrows and pulled Gu Mingming up from the chair. He pointed the gun at her and walked out. In the narrow and dim corridor, Gu Mingming saw Leah dressed in a Special Forces uniform. Chapter 1723. If Gu Mingming did not understand what was going on at the start, she understood everything the moment she saw Leah. That foreigner who looked familiar but she could not recall, she instantly remembered who he was. No wonder Leah wanted to come to H country, so this was his intention. Gu Mingming knew she should cooperate and act pitiful with reddened eyes, but seeing her man go through so much trouble, her heart was filled with sweetness and she could not suppress the corners of her lips. Gregory, who was supposed to be in F country, walked out from the corner wearing the same black Special Forces mission uniform. He stood beside Leah and said, We can use the remote control to control the bomb vest, but we need to stall for some time. Then the man asked Gu Mingming in English what were they talking about. Gu Mingming smiled and replied in broken English, We were talking about the weather, saying that today is a good day. The man indeed pointed the gun at Gu Mingming's head and spouted a long line of threatening words. Leah took out his gun and pulled the trigger. Then the man's gun dropped to the ground and he roared at Leah, Are you crazy? Leah tilted his head and chuckled, looking extremely alluring. He said in perfect English, Maybe. You can think that way, so don't touch her, don't scare her, and don't talk to her. Your opponent is me, only me. Gu Mingming felt her face hurting. As someone who had gone through 9 years of compulsory education, her English was not as good as Leah, who had only come to the modern world for a few months. Did the people in the beast world all have language cheats? How many languages were Leah and the rest proficient in now? Gu Mingming, I'm sorry I'm late. Lee's expression was a little serious. He said, Stand there and don't move. Trust me, understand? Gu Mingming nodded and stood at the same spot, smiling at Leah. Gunshots rang out one after another and the surroundings were in chaos. Gu Mingming was pulled by an external force and fell into a familiar embrace. Leah hugged her tightly, completely ignoring the rain of bullets around him. He only whispered into her ear, Gu Mingming, look at me. Gu Mingming looked up at his voice and looked at Leah, who was cosplaying with full concentration and love. She smiled gently. I will protect you and stand by your side forever. I won't let you get hurt. Trust me, Gu Mingming nodded and replied. Gregory removed the bomb vest that the foreign man had put on Gu Mingming. Then he walked to the window and threw it out. At the same time, Leah pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and looked out of the window. With a loud bang, large and resplendent fireworks exploded outside the window. Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, Although the theme is love in the midst of war, it's still too dangerous to make an explosion in front of you, so I changed the explosion into fireworks. Do you like it? Gu Mingming could not suppress her smile but straightened her neck and said, Plagiarizing Descendants of the Sun, but not finding the real Wuxia for me? Bad review. Leah smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's lips as a punishment. Then he said hoarsely, Wuxia belongs to Kang Moyan. Leah, this is yours. With that, Lee's lips pressed against Gu Mingming's again. It was a kiss filled with lingering emotions and endless gentleness. Chapter 1724. Confess. Gu Mingming smiled. Leah let go of Gu Mingming and took a step back. He knelt down on one knee and raised his handsome face, saying, In my name I swear to you that from today onwards, you are my God, my life, my everything. Gu Mingming, I love you. Marry me, all right? Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. She opened her arms and waited for Leah to hug her. Leah stood up and held onto one of Gu Mingming's hands. He spun her around and hugged her with her back facing him. He whispered into her ear, "You gave your left ring finger to Elvis and your right ring finger to Snakel. My ring can only be like this." As Leah said that, he opened his palm in front of Gu Mingming as though he was performing a magic trick. A fox-shaped ring hung on the necklace and fell in front of Gu Mingming. It bounced twice and swayed left and right before finally stopping steadily in front of her. "Shall I help you put it on?" Leah asked gently. Gu Mingming nodded. Then she parted her hair and revealed her fair and smooth neck. Leah put the necklace on Gu Mingming's neck. That ring landed right in between her collarbone and it reflected the fox on her left ear. It was as if one was on her ear and the other on her collarbone, looking at each other from afar and guarding each other. "Now I can finally be at ease." Leah swayed his body gently. "Ever since you told Sandy this story, I have been worried that a male called Eugene would come and snatch you away. Although I have watched the television series you mentioned after coming to the modern world and know that you did not lie to me, I could not bear to let you have any regrets. So, I used a large sum of money to hire the entire production team from the actors to the costume department. Even the scenes were remade according to that time period, just to replace him as the hero in your heart. Xiao Mingming, tell me, did I do it?" "You don't have to replace anyone. You will always be my hero." Gu Mingming leaned into Li's arms and chuckled. The helicopter rumbled above their heads, creating a deafening sound. A ladder hung down from the helicopter. Leah carried Gu Mingming with one hand and grabbed onto the ladder with the other, leaving the dilapidated building. Grace transformed into a bird in a corner that no one noticed. After circling twice, he followed the trajectory of the helicopter and flew away. On the helicopter, Elvis and Snake were wearing the same attire as Leah. They sat on either side of Gu Mingming. Leah sat opposite Gu Mingming. His gaze swept across the ring on her neck and then her left ear. Then he smiled and said, "Xiao Mingming, look, you are much more fortunate than Kong Moyan. You have 4 Usijins." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded, not saying a word. Leah could not allow her to have any regrets in her life, no matter if it was love or hate. Even after thousands of years, she had already forgotten all the love and hate she had, but he still firmly remembered what had hurt her and what had made her happy before. Just this kind intention alone was hard to obtain even with 1,000 gold pieces. Leah looked out of the window and said, "That fool who was unwilling to act pitiful in front of you, because he could not bear to part with you, he chased after the helicopter from F country to here. Now he is afraid that you do not want to see him, so he did not dare to board the helicopter and still chased after the helicopter back to F country. Xiao Mingming really does not intend to care about him?" Hearing Li's words, Gu Mingming then regained her senses. Following Li's line of sight, Grace was indeed chasing after the helicopter in the form of a vulture. Digression, that was the end of Li's proposal. As usual, I recommend Susu's new article, Warm Thoughts on a Pillow. Don't stop taking the CEO's medication. A 1v1 sweet pampering article. No mistresses, no exes, no misunderstandings. If there are babies who like to read sadistic articles, please pay attention to Susu's completed article. Overbearing wife. I heard that the wife wants to divorce her husband. Beast World will temporarily end here. The editor said that if the data is good, he will let me continue to publish more. Any more and it will probably be the content of Grace's marriage proposal. Susu will try her best to fight for it with the editor. If my babies like it, please leave a comment. Gregory had lived with her family for thousands of years, and she had long regarded him as her own man in her heart. However, that layer of window paper had not been pierced through for 1,000 years, and the dust on it had long been as thick as the city walls. Now that he suddenly wanted to stab her, she didn't know how to face it. Just as she was hesitating, a grip tightened around her waist and she was lifted up from Elvis's arms by Snakel. He stared at Gu Mingming for a while before extending his arm to hand her over to Gregory. "Take this. Take good care of her before Chinese Valentine's Day. A digression, the Mid-Autumn Festival is starting. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? But I'll say in advance that Gregory did not have much content." Chapter 1726. Gregory was a little agitated, his hands shaking as he hugged Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming did not resist and just leaned into Gregory's arms, looking at the other 3 males in her family. Their smiles were too natural, too in sync. It was as if this scene had happened 1,000 years ago and they had already mentally prepared themselves. And the only ones who were at a loss were her and Gregory. The private plane was very spacious and there were 4 individual rooms. Elvis and the rest found an excuse and returned to their own rooms, avoiding each other and leaving the space for Gregory, the slow-witted fellow. They thought that after Snakel became the leader, Gregory would immediately confess to Gu Mingming and ask for an identity. At that time, they thought that they should make things difficult for him and let him know the rules of the family. However, this male who was the last to enter the family was the most law-abiding one in the entire family. After 1,000 years they were about to turn into giraffes. He was finally enlightened and wanted to confess. The three males all felt an inexplicable sense of comfort. Naturally they would not destroy it. Originally, being able to fly was my advantage. But now, if you want to ascend to the heavens, you no longer have to depend on me. It seemed like it had been 1,000 years since he hugged her like this. The last time was on Moda Mountain. Planes can fly, but it's different from you. You are irreplaceable, so don't think like that. Baby Ming, I miss you so much. For the past 1,000 years, we have never separated, we have always been together. Even when I look at you, I still miss you very much. Even when I hug you, I still miss you very much. I have no choice but to think of you all the time. Gu Mingming lowered her head, her eyes filled with guilt and apology. Previously you were always sneaking around, I thought you had found someone you like here. Gregory's body stiffened and he probed, are you doubting my loyalty? Gu Mingming shook her head and answered, it's just that here I am no longer special. You can randomly pick a girl on the streets and she is very likely to be more outstanding, gentler, prettier and more loyal than me. So I am thinking if you fall in love with someone else here, should I let you off? After all, I have already trained you for 1,000 years. Baby Ming, look at me. Gu Mingming looked up at Gregory's eyes. His eyes were very clear and had the unique cleanliness of a person who had been baptized by wind and snow. The bright and clear reflection of her shadow was focused and affectionate. The eyes of birds are the sharpest. No matter how far away we are, we can accurately see what we want to see. In my eyes there is nothing but you. Whether there are outstanding, gentle, beautiful and loyal girls in this world or not, it has nothing to do with me. As long as it's not you, it won't enter my eyes. Chapter 1727. After returning to F country, Snake had to settle his family matters and was extremely busy. Elvis and Leah also had to settle the fiery flames and had little free time. The Chinese Valentine's Day was 2 days later and the people in F country did not celebrate this festival, so there was not much of a festive atmosphere. Gregory held Gu Mingming's hand as they boarded the high-speed train. Actually, there were countless luxury cars parked in the garage, but if they drove those cars out, it would be too conspicuous and attract attention. He did not want some irrelevant people to affect his rare time alone with her, so he chose the most low-key way to travel. There were quite a lot of people on the high-speed train and Gregory's heart ached that Gu Mingming would be squeezed, so he used his arms to create a small space for her, hugging her in his chest. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Gregory's waist, then pressed her little face against his chest. She looked like a little woman in love, making one feel pity and love for her. As the train swayed, her little face rubbed against his chest, making his entire body go numb as if he was electrified. He could not help but lower his head to kiss the top of her head. When they reached a certain station, Gregory carried Gu Mingming down the train and walked to the entrance of a seemingly ancient courtyard with familiarity. This small courtyard was a standalone building that had a very aged feel. It was a typical ancient European building, but it was obviously in decline and lacked maintenance, so it looked so down and out. After pressing the doorbell, there was a quick response from inside. Looking at the person who opened the door, Gu Mingming was stunned and surprised. Fei Rui. Gu Mingming tilted her head to look at Gregory and asked with a smile, "You always tell me that you have something to do, so you came to find Fei Rui?" Gregory nodded with a smile on his face. If he knew what kind of person Gu Mingming was in the past, he would not be smiling so calmly now. After all, she had been fantasizing about Elvis and Leah for a long time. If not for that one time when she was drunk and fantasizing, Elvis took it seriously and almost killed Leah before committing suicide, she might still be unable to change her fujoshi trait. It was the most loving when two beautiful brothers were together. Birds fall in love with fish. She seemed to have told this story to the females in the tribe before. But she had never said that the bird and the fish had to be a male and a female. While Gu Mingming's thoughts were running wild, Gregory had already carried her into Fei Rui's courtyard. The courtyard was filled with greenery and exuberant vitality. Unlike the desolation outside the courtyard, this place was warm and tranquil, giving off a feeling of paradise. Passing through the small courtyard, there was a glass piano room with a wooden piano in it. One could tell that it had been there for at least a few decades or even 100 years. "Grace has a surprise for you." Fei Rui's eyes were bright, and his smile was as clean as a child's. "I look forward to it." Gu Mingming returned a smile before looking at Gregory. Gregory was a little hesitant. but he still held Gu Mingming's little hand and pulled her into his arms. Seeing that she didn't resist, he kissed her forehead. His movements had always been slow and careful, as if he was afraid that she would hate him, but also because he cherished her too much, he didn't dare to be rough at all. "I wrote a song for you." Gu Mingming looked at Gregory and Fei Rue in surprise. How should I put it? Her marriage to Elvis and Leo was a result of circumstances and atmosphere. It was just a matter of time. As for Snake, there was no need to even mention him. That overbearing guy didn't even give her a chance to refuse. Just like that, he branded his mark on her body. Gregory was the first person to ask for her opinion in such a serious manner. He placed too much emphasis on rules. Gu Mingming had no doubt that as long as she showed even the slightest hint of rejection, he would immediately strangle this confession that he had been preparing for 1,000 years and return to the position of a guardian beast that he could not speak of. He would guard that lonely position and never step out of it even if he died. Out of topic. Gu Mingming sneered but did not say anything to hurt Gregory. She just asked, "Then where did you get the money to buy this villa?" Fei Rue and I signed a record contract with an entertainment company and debuted as singers as a group. I had Leia look over the contract. There's nothing wrong with it. I used all of the signing fee to buy this house. Baby Meng, I'm sorry. I didn't give you the money. I earned and made the decision on my own. But I promise I will only act on my own this time. In the future, every penny I earn will be given to you and I won't keep it for myself. Don't be mad at me, okay? Chapter 1731. Gregory circled the sky once before finding the tallest tree and stopping at its crown. Gu Mingming then realized that they were no longer in the vicinity of the villa. They had even left the city and entered the deep mountains and forests. Why are we here? Gu Mingming looked at Gregory, who had transformed into his human form and casually tied a bedsheet around his body, giving off the aura of a Roman prince. She deeply felt the importance of one's face. Even if a handsome man had a bedsheet draped over him, he would still be a male model at the forefront of the Paris Fashion Week. But when this bedsheet was draped over her just now, it should be about the same as the patients in Qingshan Mental Hospital. Look. Gregory smiled and rubbed the top of Gu Mingming's head with his chin. Then he raised his hand and pointed to the east. Gu Mingming looked in the direction of his hand. There was a faint orange light shining through the darkness. Sunrise? Yeah. Gregory replied gently. Then he rested his chin on the top of Gu Mingming's head, letting her little face lean against his chest. He said in a hoarse, infatuated voice that had been honed after 1,000 years of gentleness, "When we parted ways with Moto, I was thinking that if the legend is true and I can come back alive, I will bring you along and fly with me. I will watch the first sunrise and give you the first ray of warm sunlight so that you can become the first ray of light in this world." The sun was at the other end of the horizon, as if it was carrying 1,000 pounds of weight. Even the first inch was difficult to resist. When the huge orange light finally appeared, it broke through all the obstacles and shone in all directions, dispersing all the darkness in this world. That moment of emotion was indescribable. Gu Mingming retracted her gaze and looked at Gregory's face. His smile was gentle and elegant. He did not have the intense heat that the other men in her family had. It was as if he wanted to melt her and become one with her the moment he saw her. Gregory was the complete opposite. He took care of her carefully and protected her completely, not wanting her to be harmed in the slightest. He was like the wind, lingering around, omnipresent, never leaving for even a moment. However, he would not hinder one's progress, would not block one's vision and would not affect one's decisions. He only quietly sent a wisp of coolness in the hot summer, or blowing on her face or caressing her hair, or gently fluttering the edge of her skirt. He used all of his gentleness and treated her well for 1,000 years without her noticing. Today was probably the first sunrise in his world, right? From then on, the sunlight would dispel the darkness called loneliness, and he would no longer have to struggle outside of her world. He was her man. He was famous and had a share. "Baby Meng, I still want to do something for you." Huh? Gregory placed Gu Mingming on his back, before maintaining his half-orc form to travel through the forest. Gu Mingming had experienced this kind of flight many times, but she still found it exciting. Hence, she giggled on Gregory's back and occasionally roared like Tarzan. Anyway, they were deep in the forest and were not afraid of attracting attention. Seeing that she was having fun, Gregory purposely pondered for a while longer. Finally, he chose a tree that was neither too tall nor too short and placed her on a thick branch. Chapter 1732. Gu Mingming nodded her head in agreement. Then she watched as Gregory jumped down the tree and got into a stance. Gu Mingming was a little confused. She did not know what Gregory was doing. But she could not deny that this stance looked pretty good. After a breath, Gregory started punching, kicking, jumping, somersaulting. He belonged to the category of abstinence. Just standing there quietly made Gu Mingming want to call him master. Now that he was moving, he looked even more like a celestial master from a sect, a peerless master. With a shake of his shoulders, he stood at his original spot and slowly stopped his stance. Gu Mingming was so absorbed in watching that she could not help but clap for Gregory at the same time. And with this clap, she naturally let go of her hands. Losing her balance, Gu Mingming fell down from the tree. Gregory had been observing Gu Mingming all along. Naturally, he would not let her fall. So, he spread his wings, and when he was in front of her, he turned his wings into arms and hugged her tightly. Then he landed on the ground. Gu Mingming was actually not too afraid of falling. Maybe it was because she had fallen too many times when she was the messenger of the beast deity and was already used to it. But at this moment, her heart still couldn't help but beat so fast that her face was a little hot, so hot that it was scorching. "Are you scared?" Grace asked with concern. Gu Mingming shook her head and did not say a word. Gregory placed Gu Mingming on the ground and let her sit on the protruding root of the tree. Then he checked her body carefully to see if she was injured. "What kind of stance did you use just now? It was so beautiful." Gregory was kneeling on one knee on the ground, checking Gu Mingming's wrist. When he heard that, he looked up and his gaze was filled with warmth. "I should be the one asking you this question." Gu Mingming tilted her head in confusion. "This set of martial arts was created by you, but you did not name it." Gu Mingming was at a loss. She did not understand at all. Gregory placed her wrist down and maintained his kneeling position. He placed his hands on both sides of Gu Mingming's body for support. His upper body leaned forward slightly and he leaned closer to Gu Mingming. "When you were preparing to retrieve the love of the sky, we spent 7 days in the cave at the top of Moda Mountain. At that time you drew a portrait of me. Do you remember?" Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. To think that Gregory could so calmly call that crayon Shinshan has something on his mind portrait. This was definitely a dark history and Gu Mingming felt that there was no need to remember it so clearly. But looking at Gregory's expectant eyes, she answered honestly, "I remember. Before you painted my portrait, you also painted other things on the wall. Do you remember?" Gu Mingming thought about it and felt a little lost. Grace picked up a branch from the side and started drawing on the ground. Gu Mingming looked at it seriously for a long time before she suddenly remembered that she had drawn these little matchstick figures fighting on the walls of the cave. She even told Gregory in all seriousness that this was the martial arts esoterica that she had left behind. In the future, a fated person would jump down from the mountain peak and not fall to his death. Coincidentally, he would fall into this cave and obtain this esoterica. Then he would cultivate the ultimate martial arts and become an unparalleled hero. At that time she was talking nonsense. After Snake revived, the Hatua Mountains completely collapsed. I'm afraid that the fated person who did not die after jumping down from the cliff will not appear in that cave. I don't want to disappoint you, so let me be the unparalleled hero. Aside from the topic, someone asked me if I was going to write Snake's side story. Wasn't Domineering Senior Falls in Love with Me just Snake's side story? What side story? No, Snake didn't have a solo side story. Only that pair of slender and well-defined large hands were carelessly fiddling around under the sunlight, as if he was trying to grab something from the sunlight, or as if he was using the sunlight to warm his hands, so that she would not catch a cold when he hugged her. Leah had already set up a makeshift stove in the courtyard. There were all kinds of food on the stove that were already 80% done, as if waiting for someone to return. He just needed to increase the heat to prepare the most suitable food for her. "We're back," Gu Mingming said softly, and the 3 men in the courtyard looked up. What was rare was that no one stood up to greet her. They just stared at her face as if waiting for her to announce something. "There's no need for order when it's just Leah and me, because we've been working together for many years before we met you and confirmed each other's family positions. When Snake returned, we did not rearrange the family order because we knew very well that Grace would one day become a member of our family. It was just that back then he didn't think that he would have to wait for so long to mate. Fortunately, all of our family members are here. We are now a complete new family, so we naturally need a complete new order. But Xiaoming, wolves are greedy by nature, foxes are cunning by nature, and snakes are selfish by nature." Gregory made it sound as though Leah had already lost with just a no contest. It was true that he didn't mean it, but it was really too harsh. Gu Mingming knew that she had just mated with Gregory yesterday. Even if the three males at home did not say anything, they would definitely feel uncomfortable in their hearts. So she naturally had to appease them at this time. Chapter 1736. Gu Mingming hung in Li's arms and Leah passed his tail to her out of habit. She had a serious fetish for plush. Under Li's intentional nurturing, this problem became more and more serious. She knew but did not resist. Leah was the most insecure out of the four partners. His childhood had determined his character. Even after 1,000 years, some things were hard to change once they had taken shape. In the family he was not like Elvis, who was the first partner and indispensable. He was not like Snake, who left a mark on her heart which was the most special. He could only rely on her love to comfort himself. But now that Gregory, this little fresh meat, had joined the family, he was naturally more afraid that she would dislike him. So, her fetish for plush had become an important source of security for him. No matter what, she liked his tail. Gu Mingming's expression was one of enjoyment as she stroked his white and soft tail in her arms. Leah, why aren't you a nine-tailed fox? If you had 9 tails, just thinking about it makes me happy. Are you looking down on me? Leah said as he acted like he was going to retract his tail. Gu Mingming was having a great time stroking him. How could she let him retract his tail? No, one is good enough. One cannot be too greedy. I am content, I am content. Li's smile was a little triumphant, but it was filled with a lot of pampering. Actually, it was not entirely because he lacked a sense of security that he indulged Gu Mingming's fetish for plush. More of it was because he craved her satisfied expression. What she liked should be satisfied. Elvis turned around and looked at Gregory, asking, "Then what about you? Do you have anything to say about being the first partner?" Gregory shook his head, his gaze landing on Gu Mingming's face, who was playing with Li's tail happily. "Now that I have a status and can openly accompany her by her side, I am already satisfied. I never dared to dream of being the first partner from the start." Elvis nodded and said, "All right, since that's the case, then as the first partner I will announce the 3 rules of our family. 1. Do not let Xiaomeng cry. 2. Do not let her swear. 3. Do not let her tell legends." "Yes." The other 3 said in unison. However, after this sound the entire world began to shake. Gu Mingming was shocked and did not understand. Elvis quickly carried Gu Mingming back into his arms and looked at Snake. Only he was familiar with everything in the illusory realm. Snake sighed helplessly and said, "The environment is ultimately an illusion, it cannot withstand the power of the 4 beast kings." Gu Mingming stared in bewilderment as everything in this world gradually disappeared before her eyes like a faded oil painting. Then the scenery in front of them was replaced by an endless grassland. She had returned to the world of her beast god. However, this place was different from when she went to the dreamland. Unknowingly, a mountain range had appeared in the grassland. "That shape, Moto?" Snake chuckled and rubbed Gu Mingming's head. "Let's go in and take a look. There's a surprise." Gu Mingming did not understand but still signaled Elvis to go over to take a look. Without another word, Elvis transformed into a wolf and carried Gu Mingming on his back, flying towards Motu. When they reached the entrance they saw a small stream. It was clear and cold, like flowing ice, with bits of light and shadow. On the other side of the stream there were many people sitting around. At a glance, there were the 16 valued females, the Snow Fox tribesmen, the 16 tribes, the old tribesmen of Saint Nazir. The leader was a chubby little bear bun. When he saw Gu Mingming, he immediately stood up and waved at her. "Girl, you're finally back. We've waited for you for so long." "Sandy." Gu Mingming's voice was choked with emotions. She was indescribably touched. Pouncing over, the 2 females hugged each other. They were so emotional that they could not say a word. The 4 males looked at each other and smiled. Although it was a little strenuous to forcefully support a world with the power of a beast king, it was all worth it to make Gu Mingming so happy. The 3 of them had tried many times in the past to no avail. Now that Gregory had joined them, the 4 beast kings each held up a corner of the beast deity world and finally succeeded in activating the complete mode of the beast deity world. Kind orcs would return to the embrace of the beast deity after they died. In the beast deity world, there was no pain, no difference, no enemies, only endless warmth and happiness. They would be together with the beast deity in that world. So this legend was not a lie. Aside from the topic, recommending Susu's new articles, Warm Pillow, Don't Stop Taking CO's Medicine, Reborn Demon Concubine, Uncle Won't Attend Court Early Tomorrow. They were all one-on-one sweet love articles. The treasures that followed Susu here were definitely her true love. This story had ended but Susu was still around. So don't be regretful, don't be sad. Let's meet again in the new article. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.